Alrighty, here we are. Welcome back to Theology Thursday after our Christmas New Year break.
Yeah.
It's good to see. It's good to see you haven't changed a bit, Dave. Your beard is still the same length it was in December. So yeah, it's a new year.
Yeah,
which means a new possibility that Jesus could return.
Yeah, and we've already had some people come out and set dates. You know, out of the woodwork they come. Another prediction or two of the date of Christ's return.
When's he coming back?
Oh, this October. There's a few other dates. I've seen at least two that have said it. And I thought, well, we need to be clear. We absolutely, first of all,
they're all wrong. Wait just till the end, and we'll give you the date and the time when Jesus. No, probably won't.
We absolutely believe that Christ is returning.
Oh, yeah.
And we did
100%.
a whole series on this topic on Theo Thursday not long ago. And yes, we do believe that Christ's return is imminent. It could happen any time.
Right.
We just don't know. It could happen any time.
Actually, Dave, we've been watching The Chosen. Highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
And one theme that keeps popping up is this word soon. Jesus keeps saying soon, and they say it's the most ambiguous term. You know, what does he mean by soon? And they keep making a thing about that. When Jesus said, "I will return soon," what did you mean? Like soon as in a year, or soon as in 2,000 years, or 3,000 years?
And even the early church, they believed in the imminent return of Christ. So they thought it could be in their lifetime.
Sure.
So such an expectation is not new, but we can say for sure is that the time now is closer than it was when Peter and Paul expected it to be.
Yeah. Paul wrote, he wrote, those of us who are still alive when he returns. So, we infer from that he anticipated Jesus returning before he would die.
So setting a date for Christ's return is not new at all. Throughout the years, there have been many such dates that have been set. Many people have made life-altering decisions based on them. People have sold up homes, they've stopped education, they've quit jobs, taken all sorts of other actions, only to be let down when the set date has passed.
Didn't happen.
It'll be the year of Jubilee, or during the next blood moon, or the turn of the century.
You actually hear the blood moon one a bit. I heard it last year. I think there was a blood moon last year, and people, is this the coming?
I always ask them where the blood moon is, because it only ever is in one part of the world. It's not a universal thing. Can't be. Blood moons, centuries, jubilees pass, but all we have to show for them, sadly, is a bunch of often hurt and disillusioned people. One such famous prediction was William Miller in the 1830s.
That's right.
Predicting that Christ would return on the 1st of October 1844. Many of his followers sold their possessions, quit their jobs, and waited for the end. Miller got it wrong.
Now, were you saying before we started here this morning that the Adventist movement
came out of Miller?
Came out of that. Advent meaning the coming.
Yep.
So Advent before Christmas, we celebrate the coming of Christ in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago, and the Adventist movement is about the second coming of Christ. And so the Seventh-day Adventists,
anything with Advent in it.
The Worldwide Church of God, those people that really, the Jehovah's Witnesses even, sprung out of that movement.
1666 was a popular guess because of the three sixes.
Yes.
But that didn't come off. There was a respected German mathematician, Johannes Stoffler. He was an astrologer as well, and he predicted February the 25th, 1524, when all the planets would align. Hey, I've heard that one more recently.
So was he an astrologer or an astronomer?
Astronomer.
Yes.
Surely during the turn of the new millennium it would be.
Yeah.
So on the 31st of December 999 AD.
Right. So 1,000 years ago.
1,000 years ago, in the old Basilica of St. Peter, Pope Sylvester II performed midnight mass in silence because they're just waiting for it to tick over. The church was crowded, and inside there was a huge clock ticking once every second. The Pope actually prayed in silence. There's this silence through and the worshippers lay face down, afraid to look up, waiting for the predicted end and Christ's return. And suddenly the clock stopped ticking, and hundreds of people shrieked, and some actually died of fright. The bell began to strike the midnight hour, and Pope Sylvester raised his hands, and the bells all rung at once, and from the choir loft came the Te Deum Laudamus, to God be the glory.
But Jesus never showed up.
And 1,000 arrived.
Oh.
The year 2000 came and went, despite of all the predictions about what was going to happen, and 2000 being the seventh millennium since creation, according to some.
Yeah. And the second since Christ's birth.
And therefore that signalled the start of a 1,000-year reign, according to those that believe in that. So there's another, Ezra White, Weisenhower wrote a book entitled 88 Reasons Why the Rapture Will Be in 1988. So he predicted the date of Christ's return as being the 13th of September
88 reasons
1988.
Wow.
And he reasoned that even though Jesus said no one can know the day or the hour of his return, we can still know the month and the year, but he extended a little bit. Trinity Broadcasting Network,
TBN, they're
TBN,
big.
They interrupted their programming to tell people how to get ready for the rapture on that day. The next day, their normal programming simply resumed. Weisenhower got it wrong, but he did sell 4.5 million copies of his book. Worked out well for him.
Yeah, you know what though, Dave? To me, it's not surprising that we've got people setting dates and trying to figure out exactly when. You know, when you read some of the passages in the Bible that people assume refers to the second coming of Christ, you know, like, and given that we have this this incredible global network of computers where we can every earthquake gets reported, every war gets reported, so there's famines and earthquakes and wars, and they seem to be increasing in number and increasing in frequency. Then it's little wonder that people, sort of draw conclusions that, hey, didn't Jesus say there'd be more famines, earthquakes and wars? Didn't he say there'd be more false Christs and false prophets? So it's little wonder that people assume, yes, this is it, where it's happening now. And
but are there more earthquakes now, or are we just more aware of it because of the computer?
Yeah, and I'm sure geologists can answer that question a lot better than us. But I guess, so I'm not surprised that there are date setters.
Yep.
I'm not surprised that people are trying to figure it out. But I'm not sure that that's the point that Jesus was trying to make. I don't think... he would say to his people, like, I want you to go out and preach the gospel. And they say, so is this the time you're going to reestablish Israel? And he goes, I wasn't talking about that. Just go out and preach the gospel. Like they're always on about dates and wanting to know when it's all going to happen.
I guess that it's fair enough to say that if people keep saying it will be this year, eventually somebody has to be right.
Yes.
But Jesus told his disciples...
You can imagine him getting around in heaven going, hey, I got it right, for the next million years.
Jesus told his disciples that it's not for you to know the times or the dates that the Father has set by his own authority. So he said no one actually knows the day nor the hour of his return, yet still somewhat rationalise their date setting by saying, well, we mightn't know the day, the hour, but we can get pretty close.
Yeah.
Apparently not from the results.
No one else has gotten close.
If God wanted us to know when his son is returning, I believe he would have made that clear in his word. As it is, he said, we don't know.
Right. That he is returning, yes. When he is returning, no.
No, that's right. When Paul wrote to the Thessalonians in chapter 5, he said, now, as to the times and the dates, brethren, you have no need of anything to be written to you, because he'd already discussed that exact issue with them. For you yourselves know full well that the day of the Lord will come just like a thief in the night. In other words, unexpectedly.
Yeah.
And I often say to the families of somebody who has died after a long illness, you knew that your loved one was going to die, but you didn't expect it to be today. It's always going to be tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even though we know that they're close, when it comes, it still catches us unawares. It's still, to some degree, it's a fright. It's always going to be tomorrow, never today. And that's the same principle that Paul is referring to when he said that Christ would return like a thief in the night. We know that he's coming, but maybe tomorrow. So we don't want to say today's the day. We always put the date into the future. And the overall...
That's actually, if you are going to set a date, make it well past your own due date. You know, like if you know, I'm about this old, I'm probably going to be dead by this age. Whenever your date that you set, probably make it after that, you know, so you can't be ridiculed when you get it wrong.
The overall teaching of the New Testament doesn't say that it was impossible to know the date in the early church, but the 21st century church would somehow know because of blood moons or planetary alignments. It doesn't say that no one knows the day or the hour, except those 2 millennia down the track, us, who will be able to figure it out through some scheme. No, the date of Christ's return is a matter of God's revelation, and he chose not to even reveal it to Christ in his humanity during his first advent. So that's, I think, pretty clear. So why is it unwise to try and set a date? Right. Shortly before Jesus ascended back to heaven, he told his disciples to go into all the world, as I said before, preach the gospel, make disciples of all people. He did not say focus your energy on trying to figure out when I'm coming back. He did tell us to live with an attitude of readiness, but readiness doesn't mean sky watching and date calculating. It means being faithful to all that he has told us to do, pursuing holiness, loving the people that he brings across our paths, fulfilling the great commandment and the great commission. That's what it's all about. Jesus urged us to store up treasure in heaven and to work as harvesters in the fields. Nothing about trying to predict when he's going to return.
Have you seen that little bumper sticker that says, Jesus is coming, get busy, right? Get busy. Actually it says look busy, but we got to get busy, right? Like Jesus said, I'm leaving, but I will return, get busy. It's, you know, like, I'm not going to tell you when, and it turns out it's at least 2,000 years from when he said that, but to him, every soul is important. Every person is important, and it's not an infinite amount of time. There is a date that only he knows.
And we've got a job to do in the meantime.
Absolutely.
And when we become preoccupied with trying to predict the unpredictable, our priorities are just not in the right order.
In fact, like you said, during our series on the end times, and particularly, you know, those events surrounding, you know, the end times and people who have interpreted some of those scriptures, we would say incorrectly, about the Great Tribulation, and that people that focus on those things generally, not all of them, but generally, they are so afraid and so concerned about, you know, the big brother's going to come and get us and the state of the world, that they stop doing the very things Jesus told them to do. They stop trying to outreach, they stop evangelizing, they hunker down, become a doomsday prepper, and they completely miss the whole point. And I wonder if that's the very reason Jesus knew, if I told you that I was coming again in the year of our Lord 20 yada yada yada, then you guys would stop doing the very things I asked you to do. Love one another, reach out, love the Father, worship, all those things that he's asked us, pursue holiness, the things you just mentioned. We'd stop doing that because we'd go, oh, he's here any minute, we should probably tidy up.
We mentioned before the Olivet Discourse and a lot of things in Matthew 24 that people think are end times, and we've previously noted about these passages were about the sacking of Jerusalem in 70 AD. And the followers of Jesus' teaching knew that when they saw certain events, they needed to escape, to leave Jerusalem.
Right.
And they did. And Josephus reports that no Christians were in Jerusalem when it was raised by Titus. That to me is amazing. They had all fled to safety in line with the things that Jesus had taught would happen then in that generation.
That's how they interpret it. So that's the bit where, like Dave said, that's the bit where Jesus says, you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. There'll be famines, there'll be earthquakes. Yes, there was a famine.
And when the eagle comes.
Yeah, the eagles surrounded Jerusalem. That's the Roman army. There was a massive, I was just saying, there was a massive famine in Judea at the time.
And it was a time of many Caesars, actually. There were quite a few revolts in Rome.
Right.
You know,
right. So all of those things were interpreted by the original Christians as oh, this is when the Romans are going to destroy Jerusalem, which they did in 70 AD, and all of the Christians went, Jesus told us about this, run away, and they all did run away.
And the same applies to Hebrews 10:25,
right,
where it says, encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. Some teach that this implies that we're able to know that the day or the second coming is drawing near, but the immediate context
wrong day,
and the context of the book of Hebrews is one that's warning Jewish believers before the 70 AD destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. He's saying, don't return to Judaism because the immediate future only contains wrath for those Jews who reject Jesus as
the
Messiah.
Romans are coming.
The day is here. It's not a reference to the second coming. It's a reference to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD.
Yeah, and sometimes that's referred to as the great and awful day of the Lord, meaning, the day of the destruction of Jerusalem.
One verse often trotted out by date setters is 1 Thessalonians 5:4. But brethren, you are not in darkness, and that day should not overtake you as a thief, which almost contradicts what Jesus said. Some says we won't be taken by a surprise, and believers would have to know the timing of the day, the return of Christ, in order not to be taken by surprise. But that's not what Paul is actually saying. He's saying that they won't be overtaken because they're already prepared by virtue of the fact that they are believers. The return of Christ won't catch us unprepared. We are prepared. That's what salvation's about. But the unbeliever will be unprepared because they're without salvation, and they'll bear the consequence of them not preparing for their eternal state. There's a lot more that we could say about being prepared in the sense of the Christians being faithful to their calling, so they're not ashamed in his presence. But that doesn't all apply to date setting. That's an all-time application. Regardless of when he's coming, we need to be engaged in our Christian life, fulfilling our commission and making disciples.
100%. So you don't have a date for us, Dave?
Yes, at the moment you think not.
Yes.
I guess a final word on the date setting thing. When Christians declare that Christ will return on or by a particular date and then are proven wrong because it didn't happen, it gives the enemy great pleasure. Skeptics already mock the supernatural. They discount the Bible as nonsense and often look for reasons to mock Christians and their beliefs. So when Christians predict an end time date with the same authority as they proclaim the gospel,
and that's the thing. Some of these people,
they're absolutely sure.
They're as convinced about that as they are about the gospel, and to me, that's out of whack. That's not right. The gospel is 100%.
It validates the skepticism, really.
Yeah.
And when the date passes, it creates great derision, which reflects poorly on the name of Christ and can damage the faith of those who are weak in their faith and can turn away those who are inquiring about the claims of Christ. We have to be careful. All we have to go on is what he has revealed to us, and the date is simply not in Scripture.
No.
Any speculation is nothing more ever than just speculation.
That's right.
But it can be harmful to the cause of Christ.
Yeah.
I guess having said that, we need to come back to where we started. We do believe that he's coming. That his coming could be at any time in the near or distant future. Even though we prepare and plan maybe years ahead, our future has to be planned in many ways for the church, personally, family-wise, and so forth. We should still all be ready and live as though he's coming today.
Yeah. Good one, Dave. So, sorry, everybody, we're not going to give you a date, but just be ready. Could be any moment. And once he comes, it's too late for people to be saved after that. So get busy. We need to
fulfill the commission.
We need to get out there and spread the love and the grace of God to the people in our world. So have a crack at that this week, and we'll either see you on Sunday in church, or we'll see you next Thursday for our next installment of Theology Thursday. God bless you.